Hi guys, today we're going to do core, and I know it's been a little while since I last posted one of these kind of videos and there's been a lot of requests for me to take them up again. I've actually been bouncing around Bristol of no fixed abode, and that's made things quite difficult to find out where to film and just to keep things on board, basically doing a full-time degree and placements which I don't get paid for. And trying to keep circus stuff afloat and everything. It was a lot to shoot, but I have a little moment of stability, and here I am again, and we're going to go over the core. I'm going to pick up from where we left off, and from this we can also learn that, although sometimes things go a little bit wobbly, we can absolutely get back on track, and we can continue with the things that we really want to do in our lives, because that is really important. So let's start off with some anatomy as per usual, and then we'll go into the exercises as we've done so before. Welcome to your abdominals, and this is the basic overview. So you guys will be very aware of some of the muscles that are already here. The biggest one that we will be aware of would be the rectus abdominis. But before we get into that, let's just get some landmarkings in place. So here we have your sternum, which is that breastplate bone right by here. Here, this is rib 5. Now this is going to be important for later if we want to feel where these muscles are. So this muscle here, this is our external obliques. So I'm just going to put that X and then OB, external obliques. So we know what that is. That is also the same as this one here. That is also our external obliques. And the job of this muscle is to help with turning. So if I contract one of these muscles, so say if I was to start to contract this one, I would end up turning towards that side of the body. If I was to contract them both at the same time, it helps with flexion at the trunk, which is pretty cool. So these muscles can either work together or independently for different actions, and they're very, very important for things like human flags, stars, if we're talking about acrobatics sort of fitness, which is, where sort of my mind tends to go. But, even just stuff like turning around to open a door or whatever it is, bending down for your shoes, these are really, really important. Now, the main flexor of the trunk is this one, your rectus abdominis. So I'm just going to do rect ab. And this is your six-pack. Everybody has a six-pack, as we'll see from these connection lines here, these little tendons. So it's technically one muscle, and it is divided into 6 bellies, but it is one muscle. That's quite important to remember. Now, as well, here we have our internal obliques, and these help with the external obliques as well. They can also help with turning more so than flexion. So yeah, they're really important again for again human flags, stars. Again, turning to open a door or looking behind you. We'll know that once we've done a really big ab day. If we've done a lot of ab work, actually moving around can be quite hard. There's a lot of movement that comes through these muscles. They're very strong, and they're bands that go around the whole body, as we'll see when I start to move the diagram around. Here, now this is your transverse abdominis. And this is like a corset that wraps around your body. And you can see the striations here are going transverse, they're going horizontally, more so than sort of the other ones in some ways. So this keeps everything together. It is your corset. So when we're doing our dishes and when we're doing our planks, this is working quite hard to make sure that everything, doesn't fall out of place. This is your linea alba, around by here. Let's change the change the thing. And that is basically a tendon that muscles attach into, and the force can go straight down the body, as you can see, into the pubic symphysis. And this is called the anterior rami of the pelvis. Cool. That's all great. So let's start having a look at what it looks like inside. Brilliant. So as we can see, these are all flat bands of muscle that just wrap around and hold our organs together. And if we look at the attachments on the ribs, we can now sort of understand how they would function to, say, keep everything in place when we say doing a lift. If we start lifting our arm, we start hanging off of one arm. We can see how these might end up as being stabilizers for that movement. Say if we're dangling from an arm and we want to go into a meat hook, or, for people who are doing circus and aerial and acrobatic stuff, or say, you're just reaching up one arm to put your hand up in class and you're stabilizing, that will keep your ribs stabilized as well as other things. So it's good to remember that muscles don't always function in just one way. They might have the same action, but their function can be to either to move or to stabilize, to be an agonist, so to initiate the movement, or to resist against the movement, which we call antagonists. And there are other muscles like helpers, neutralizers, and stabilizers. Also, what is important, although technically not part of your abdominal muscles, are these. And these are your quadratus lumborum muscles. And they become really important when in context of the bigger picture, which I've just been talking about, how muscles function together. So these would act quite a lot as an antagonist as I flex my trunk. These will resist and they will help stop over movement and ultimately actually help with control, especially like with rotations. It's something called force coupling. So we have a force going in one direction, it's met with a force in another direction. It could either deaccelerate that, which is actually a good thing because we need that for motor coordination. And yeah, it helps with fine movement control of the trunk. So if we're talking then about dance or something like that, say if we're doing contemporary dance, that is where that comes into play quite a lot there with those sorts of delicacies. Okay, so how are we going to find these muscles on us? Maybe that's an interesting question that you guys want to know. So you can see this little inlet here. If I go down just a little bit, just underneath it, that's my breastbone. And what we can do is if we move to the side, you'll see these little protrusions. These are my collarbones, they're not my ribs. But if I was to go down one, I can start feeling my ribs. So there is rib 1 by there, just underneath the collarbone. It's a bit funny to feel. Might want to get an anatomy poster up for this as well. And then there is rib 2. Also, looking away and closing your eyes tends to help for some reason, like, some sort of, mole digging through the dark. Rib 2, rib 3, rib 2, by the way, on here, this is where my heart starts. Rib 3, rib 4, rib 5. Okay, so here, rib 5, before it's underneath my pectoralis major, that is where my rectus abdominis is going to start, and my external obliques are going to start. So we know they're going to start here, so we can see now that right down here, and obviously I'm not going to show you where my pubis is, because that would be quite rude, but they were coming down, so from where was I, here, to, if I was to follow around the top of my hip bone, and down, walk that down, I found something called the anterior superior iliac spine, inferior inferior iliac spine, and I can walk down through here. I'm following this thing called an inguinal ligament here, an inguinal canal, and my pubis, my pubis symphysis is actually by here, and then my genitals are a bit lower, just so you know I'm not quite grabbing myself there. But we can see, on me I'm fairly toned, I've done a lot of circus, we can see that by here we have the rectus abdominis sort of protruding through, and if I do these side flexions and whatever, we can see that actually there is the obliques coming through there, And these will be the obliques externus. And if I try to really hard, there we go. That's a little bit of my obliques internus sort of bulging through there. There are more muscles that are going on here that we haven't discussed, such as the intercostals, but the intercostals are more associated with respiration than anything else. So that might be quite interesting for you to do, but if not, let's just get on with the exercises, because why else are you watching these videos, to be honest? Okay, so as we see, got my nice weight bench. I actually gave up my office chair for a weight bench and I have no regrets. This is great. So we're going to start off with your stand sit-up. I am lying on my back. Initially I've pulled my belly button to my spine. I'm literally going to make this easy for myself to begin with. This is the beginner version. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do this. And it's a very, very slight curl. I'm not actually coming up that high to begin with. That is because when working the rectus abdominis, actually if I was to go past here, I'm now working something called the psoas major and the iliopsoas band, which is something slightly different. Actually, I need to do a separate exercise to get the bottom of my rectus abdominis. So if you want your full six-pack, doing those ain't necessarily going to help. What is going to help is if I bring myself a bit lower, pull my feet up and actually do these pops instead. Now that is working the lower of my rectus abdominis. When before, if I go just straight up like that, actually I'm working two separate muscle systems there. So that's not going to help. So that's for your rectus abdominis. We'll all probably know this one, a dish. That will be for our transverse abdominis. So we can feel it's getting that tight corset round, and that is really good for you. Obviously we can do this, so transverse abdominis, as I start to pull in, now the rectus abdominis is becoming the major agonist for that movement, and interesting enough, that quadratus lamborum at the back, that's the antagonist for this, or one of them, and it is helping we make this movement fine and controlled. That's really important, that we understand that muscles work in groups and it's not one is better than the other or whatever. That is just as it is. Also, interestingly enough, if I was to do a tuck from hang, if I was hanging, the biomechanics would change quite considerably as to what is the stabilizers and what the actual details of these functions are. I'm getting really dorky into this. I love this. Cool, so that's our sort of major flexors of the trunk. Let's look at the obliques. Now for obliques we're looking at star movements. So if I was to come this side and do this, that is working my obliques. I'm on a star, which you can't really see from that angle. So a star, bam, there's my obliques. I'm working there on this one. And then the other side, that's also my obliques. It's quite hard to do on there. Those are things that we can do. If we're going to do mobile obliques, so we're looking at sort of isotonic contraction instead of isometric contraction, which is what that was, I might have to change my bench for that. There we go. Let's get that down. Instead, what I'm going to do is try and hook my legs in underneath my desk apparently, and I'm doing this. Now for it to work properly, I need to be directly on that line, so directly there, yeah? As soon as I start coming round like this, I've started working my obliques in a different way. But if I want to work my obliques purely from one oblique and just isolate one oblique at a time, I need to be straight on, like that, yeah? And lower down. And eccentric contractions will build you more strength than concentric. So concentric being, eccentric being. So, you know, we want to keep our bodies long. So getting that lower down, slow, is really good idea. Anyway, have fun with them. I'm going to finish off my routine properly. And yeah, let me know what you think. Please give me some feedback. It's always grateful for feedback. And happy fitness, happy working out, and happy anatomy, because these bodies that we have are incredible. Everybody's body is incredible, and we all have these muscles, and they all do us wonders. So enjoy your body for what it is, whatever that may be, because it is incredible, and it's going to serve you for the rest of your life. So those are your abdominals. I'm probably going to upload a lot of these videos again, to be honest with you, and just as my knowledge build on the videos and just rehash them. You know, for a physiotherapy student, that's a really good thing to do. Also, slight disclaimer, you know, I can teach you all of this, but shout out to the personal trainers here. You know, you're not going to get the same sort of experience watching these videos as you are with a professional personal trainer, a professional physiotherapist, or a professional coach. They're going to give you direct feedback straight up. So I can tell you all of this stuff, and that's great, and you can go and try it, and that's great. But again, you know, if you really want to push yourself with this, I really recommend going to a professional, because they're trained to really help you out, and they want to help you out. And yeah, they'll be able to see and give you that instant feedback. That's the one.